Microsoft just announced the new Surface Pro 11 and Surface Laptop 7 with the Snapdragon X Plus and X Elite processors. These new ARM processors are designed to give a lot better battery life, performance, and AI capabilities to Windows machines. And in this video, we're going to break down everything you need to know about the new Surface devices. With that being said, let's get into this. So we are here on the Microsoft website, and it is saying a new AI era of PC begins, and we can shop for AI PCs. One thing I want to bring your attention to, because this is important irrespective of whether you have a new Surface device or a new Windows Copilot or AI PC, is this thing called an NPU. So NPU stands for Neural Processing Unit. And the way to think about an NPU is you have a CPU that handles your everyday tasks, you have a GPU that handles your graphic intense tasks, and then the NPU will handle your neural processing tasks or AI workloads. If your computer doesn't have an NPU, which pretty much every computer up until now doesn't have it, a lot of the AI workload is done by the CPU, which causes it to run slow and run hot. The NPU is designed to alleviate all of that, and that is one of the biggest features of these new Surface devices and the new Snapdragon processors that they come with. So let's jump over to the Surface website and let's start talking about the new Surface devices. They have announced the new Surface Pro 11 and Surface Laptop. I want to start by looking at the new Surface Pro. And one thing to call out is that there are two types of processors you can get inside of these PCs. One is the Snapdragon X Elite, which is the best processor on the market, or is the Snapdragon Plus processor. I'm currently using the Surface Pro 9 5G with the ARM processor, and that thing has been rock solid for the past year. I've got a video on that that'll link down below, but that wouldn't even compare to the Plus, let alone the Snapdragon X Elite. So I think for most general users, you probably won't need to go past a Plus processor. Of course, when I get my hands on these devices, I'm going to test them and put them through real world paces. But for now, that is one thing to note, is that there are two variants of the processor, the Plus and the Elite. Let's jump over to the Surface Pro, and one thing you'll notice is it looks almost like the Surface Pro 8 and Surface Pro 9, but there are a few subtle differences that I'm going to walk you through right now. It's a little bit hard to tell from this image, but it now has rounded corners along each of the screens instead of the square corners on the Surface Pro 8 and Surface Pro 9. The other thing to note is the Copilot key on the keyboard. This gives you quick access to Windows Copilot. I'm going to jump down though. We're going to look at the body in a little bit, but there's a few things I want to focus on right now, and that is the specs that Microsoft call out. The first spec I want to talk about is the 90% faster performance, which is crazy. It's a huge number. This is in relation to the Surface Pro 9, which again was a super powerful device. When I get my hands on these, we're going to actually test it in real world scenarios to see exactly what that 90% does refer to, but that is a really promising number in terms of performance. On the left hand side, you have up to 14 hours all day battery life, which is more than enough for most people. And that just still gives you all day battery life. Two big changes though that I'm going to call out is of course the OLED cinematic display, which you can get on the top spec of the Surface Pro. When we go into the pricing in a little bit, you see there are two versions of displays that you can get, but there is now new OLED technology that gives you all the amazing visual benefits of OLED. And then there is that NPU. In the Surface devices, it is the industry leading one with over 45 trillion operations per second. Or as some people refer to it as 45 tops. Of course, the more tops you have, the more powerful your AI processor is going to be. I want to jump down now though into looking at the body of the Surface Pro to walk you through some of the things that have changed and some of the things that have stayed the same. So you can see here, this looks like a regular Surface Pro, but there are those few subtle differences, which are of course the rounded edges of the screen and that Copilot key. You may not notice, but they have increased the webcam to a 1440p webcam. Still with Windows Hello, this is just going to give you even better video calls. And if we jump around to the side of the device, you'll notice it still has two USB-C ports. The fact that they're using Snapdragon processors, not Intel, means that this is not Thunderbolt anymore, but these are just USB-C. That will give you data, give you power, and basically everything you get from USB-C without the Thunderbolt. Of course, you have it in this beautiful sapphire blue, and there are a few color options we're going to check out. On the right-hand side, or actually on the back, you still have that rear-facing camera. You have your power and your volume buttons at the top of the device. Nothing really has changed. And then on the right hand side, you also have your Surface Connect for magnetically connecting. One thing you might not have noticed is that this keyboard is actually the new Flex keyboard, and it looks really, really cool. The different thing with the Flex keyboard is that it also wirelessly connects to your Surface Pro now instead of always having to be connected. So let's check that out right now. So you can see here in this image, it says a new way to flex, and it is called the Surface Pro Flex Keyboard, which is quite expensive, I will add. It's about 750 Aussie dollars. But what the image is showing us here is that that keyboard is being used even though it's not physically connected to the Surface Pro. This means that if you're an artist like this person in the image, you can be writing and drawing on your Surface tablet while still using the keyboard in a much more ergonomic sense because you can have it to the side of you. That I think for artists and graphic designers is going to be an amazing tool. But for most people, I'm not sure if you do need it, especially given the price. And then of course you still have your regular keyboards to buy. But that Surface Pro Flex keyboard it does look really amazing. And this is a feature a lot of people have asked for a long, long time. The Flex keyboard is also available in two colors, the bright sapphire or the standard black. You'll know it's a Flex keyboard because at the top here, it has a smaller ribbon connector instead of the traditional one, which I'll show you in a second or later on in this video as we go through the pricing. In terms of pricing, the Surface Pro 11 starts at $18.99, and that is for the regular Snapdragon X Plus with the LCD display. If you want the best display and the best processor, you are looking at starting at $26.99 Aussie dollars, and that's also without the keyboard. I think for most people, the Surface Pro 11 with the X Plus will be just fine, but if you want the best of the best, you will jump up to that Surface Pro X Elite or Snapdragon X Elite processor that also gives you the better screen. Let's have a look at the pricing now. So you see there are four color options you can get this in: the sapphire, the June color, and then you have the platinum and the black. At the moment, Wi-Fi is the only option. It is Wi-Fi 7, which is a big upgrade. And then later this year, they will have our 5G options available too. Depending on the color that you choose, you will have different specifications. So the black one, for example, only comes with 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 SSD. If we jumped over to the June color, if we jump over to the platinum though, you see it gives you the base model that is $18.99 which is Wi-Fi, 16 gigs of RAM, but only a 256 gig SSD. So depending on the color you get, changes the specs of the device you can buy. But it does also max out with the 16 gigs of RAM for the X Plus. If you jumped over though to the X Elite, you see you have a lot more options here in terms of configuration. If we jump over though to the X Elite, you see Wi-Fi is still the only option right now, but there are a lot more configurations. These do change depending on the color you choose, but it starts with the X Elite with 16 gigs of RAM and 512, not a 256 gig SSD, going all the way up to a 32 gig 1 terabyte option for $3,600. So, and that is available in platinum only. So let's go ahead and grab that one for now. We're going to grab the platinum color, Wi-Fi, and the top spec. So right now, the top spec X Elite Surface Pro with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD is 36 Aussie dollars, 3,600 Aussie dollars. I'm going to continue to M365. No thanks, because I already have it. Continue to these accessories. And then you'll see you can choose the range of accessories as well. That Surface Pro Flex keyboard that gives you the wireless connectivity is $770. So it is quite expensive. The way to tell the difference between the two is here on the Surface Pro Flex, it is just a flat cut, whereas the traditional Surface Pro has that bit more of a rigid design to it. And then you can, of course, aside from choosing colors of the keyboard, you can choose whether you want it with the pen storage with no pen. You can choose it with the pen, or you can choose it with the pen plus flex. For most people, I'd recommend getting the Pro with the pen. If you need the flex, go ahead and pay for the extra. But if you don't, then I reckon the regular keyboard with the pen is all you need. For this example though, let's add it to the cart, see what it really boosts it up to. So our top spec Surface Pro 11 with the Snapdragon X Elite processor, OLED display, 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte SSD, and the Pro Flex keyboard comes to a grand total of 4,368 Aussie dollars and 95 cents. And they are available in Australia anyway from 18th of June. Let's go review and check out. So there is one other thing I want to show you. So we are in my cart here, and because I've signed in with my student account, you actually get a fairly decent discount off the cost of that device. It drops from $35.99 to $32.39. So if you are a student, make sure you're logging in with your Microsoft account that is associated as a student so you can get that education discount, because it's a lot of money that you do save. But honestly, for a top spec Surface Pro with the latest and greatest of everything, I think 4,000 Australian dollars, even though it is expensive, it is a lot cheaper than I was expecting it to be. But for now, let's jump over and check out the new Surface laptop, which I'm really excited about. So the new Surface laptop to me is probably the bigger change here, in the fact that they have now squeezed a bigger display, 13.8 inches, into a physically smaller body. So you'll see in this image here that there are a lot slimmer bezels. It is rounded around all the corners, and it's a bigger display than last year's Surface Pro 5, Surface Laptop 5 and Surface Laptop 6 screen. And it does have all the benefits of that new AI-powered processor, with up to 86% performance improvements, and that's with the Snapdragon X Elite, but you can also get it with the Snapdragon Plus processor too. In terms of battery life, they are quoting up to 20 hours all-day battery life. You get that same amazing NPU with 45 trillion operations per second for all your AI workload. And then, of course, they have a larger display in a physically smaller device, which is amazing. So it's now a 13.8 inch instead of 13.5. And there is, of course, the 15-inch version as well. One thing to note, though, they have made it slightly thicker, and that is to improve, I believe, to improve the thermal performance of the laptop. I'm okay with that because it is still a super thin and light design, but a little bit of weight for a lot better performance. I'm definitely happy with that trade-off. If we look at the body of the Surface Laptop 7, what you'll notice on the left-hand side are a couple of different ports. You have two USB-C ports. Again, they'll support power, they'll support display, but they won't support Thunderbolt because these are ARM processors. You have a regular USB-A as well as a headphone jack. So you have a lot of ports to use. And on the right-hand side of that, you have your Surface Connect magnetic port. Front facing, of course, you have that Windows Hello webcam for sign-in and video calls. And just like the regular Surface laptops, there's no camera on the back. One thing you can't see from this video, but they've actually changed the trackpad on here to be the same trackpad as the Surface Laptop Studio and Studio 2 Plus, meaning it's a taptic trackpad where it doesn't have any more physical buttons to click, but it gives you a vibration and a response. It is a really nice trackpad in the Laptop Studio, and the fact that it's made its way into the regular laptop now, I think, is a big benefit, because it is a much nicer, much more customizable trackpad than what you get with physical buttons. One Windows 11 AI feature I'm really excited about is this one called Recall. It right now is in pre-release and it is subject to change, but this is essentially changing the way search works with your computer. The way this seems like it works is that it uses the AI processor, which runs at 45 trillion operations per second, to look at your PC's history and retrieve the moments that you're after by using natural language input. So this is using AI on the PC, so on the local compute, to improve your search functions. And this looks like it's going to be a game changer in Windows. Of course, you will need an AI PC with an NPU, but this feature to me is going to make using your computer so much easier, better, and faster. And I can't wait to try it out for myself. Now let's jump over and check out some pricing. So we're going to go into the pre-order section here. And of course, there are two screen sizes that you can get the Surface laptop in, 13.8 or 15 inch. And then they have configurations underneath that with different processors. The 13.8 starts at $1,900 and the 15 inch starts at $2,400. So not the cheapest laptop out there, but these are premium devices. Of course, you have the choice of the Snapdragon X Plus or the X Elite. And then you have the same colors as what you can get in the Surface Pro 11. Depending on the color you choose also does vary the spec you can get. But the base model with the Snapdragon X Plus, which I think is fine for most people out there, gives you the X Elite, the X Plus, 16 gigs RAM and a 256 gig SSD for $1,900. And this is only available in Platinum. As soon as you go up the color ranges, you get different colors, but also that 16 gigs of RAM with a 512 SSD. So double the storage and color options for $300. If we look at the 15, to make it a little bit easier to break down, let's jump over and pick a processor. So to make it a bit easier to understand, let's go ahead and pick a display size. So 13.8 inches. We'll look at the Plus for now. And then these range from $18.99 all the way up to $21.99. So the only option here is a different color or doubling your SSD size. If you go to the X Elite though, these start with the same 16 gigs of RAM, but a better processor, starting at 512 SSD, configurable all the way up to a black option with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD, and that's for the 13.8 inch model. And if we look at the 15 inch, this one only is available with the X Elite processor. You can't get it with the Plus. This starts with X Elite, 16 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD for $23.99. Again, configurable all the way up to a black option with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. I'm going to go ahead and choose that and add that one to my cart for now, and then review and check out. Again, these are available in Australia starting June 18th. And if I sign in, so my top spec Surface Laptop 7 with the Snapdragon X Elite processor in black with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD is generally $36.99, but with my student discount, it comes down to $33.29 and 10 cents. So again, if you are a student, make sure you sign in because there are some big discounts to have here. In terms of the price, for a top spec Surface laptop with the latest processors, I actually think that is a really reasonable price to pay for the best devices from Microsoft. And that is everything you need to know about Microsoft's latest announcement. Let me know your thoughts on these new devices and processors in the comment section down below. Of course, when they are available, we're going to get them in, we're going to review them, we're going to put them through their paces and give you real world feedback. Of course, if you like this video, let me know by giving a thumbs up. And if you're in Supercharged Raise Your Computer, hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
In the wild, where the trees sway, there's a fox bragging gay.